Sam Sherwood here with ABC News, and we are here at Chicago for our first presidential live debate. And now, to start us off with our first ever presidential live debate is our moderator, Howard Smith.
Good evening. The television radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations provide facilities for discussion of issues in the current political campaign by two major candidates for the presidency. Candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy. The first question to Senator Kennedy from Mr. Fleming. Senator, the President in his campaign has said that you were naive at times, immature. He has raised the question of leadership. On this issue, why do you think people should vote you rather than the Vice President?
Well, moderator, the Vice President and I came to Congress together in 1946. We both served in the Labor Committee. I've been there now for 14 years, the same amount of time that he has. Our experience in government is comparable. I come out of the Democratic Party, which in this century has produced Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Harry Truman, and which supported and sustained these programs which I've discussed tonight. Mr. Nixon comes out of the Republican Party. He was nominated by it. I think Mr. Nixon is an effective leader of his party. I hope he would grant me the same. The question before us is, which point of view and which party do you, as citizens, want to lead the United States?
Mr. Nixon, would you like to comment on that statement?
I have no comment.
Vice President, next question is for you. Mr. Vice President, your campaign stresses the value of your 8-year experience, and the question arises as to whether that experience was as an observer or as a participant or as an initiator of policymaking. Can you tell us, please, specifically what major proposals you have made in the last 8 years that have been adopted by the administration?
Well, Mr. Smith, it'd be pretty difficult to cover all 8 of them in the next 2 minutes, but I would suggest these proposals could be mentioned. First, after each of my trips, I've made recommendations that have been adopted. For example, after my first trip, I strongly recommended that we increase our exchange programs, particularly as it related to exchange of persons, of leaders in the labor field and in the technology field. I know Senator Kennedy suggested in a speech at Cleveland yesterday that the committee had not been particularly effective. I would only suggest that while we do not take credit for it, I would not presume to. That since that committee has been formed, the price line has been held very well within the United States.
Mr. Kennedy, this next question is for you. You call for expanding some of the welfare programs for schools, for teachers' salaries, medical care, and so forth, but you also call for reducing the federal debt. And I'm wondering how you, if you're president in January, would go about paying the bill for all this.
I did not advocate reducing the federal debt because I don't believe that you're going to be able to reduce the federal debt very much in 1961, 62, or 63. I think you have heavy obligations which are security, which we're going to have to meet. And therefore, I've suggested we should be able to retire the debt substantially, or even at all in 1961 or 62.
Mr. Vice President, since the question of executive leadership is a very important campaign issue, in our Republican campaign slogans, you'll see them on signs around the country, as you did last week. Say it's experience that counts. That's over a picture of yourself. Sir, implying that you've had more government experience, decision-making, experience than your opponent. Now in his President Eisenhower was asked to give one example of a major idea of yours that he adopted. His reply was, and I'm quoting, "If you give me a week, I might think of one. I don't remember." Now that was a month ago, sir, and the President hasn't brought it up since. And I'm wondering, sir, if you can clarify which version is correct, the one put up by Republican campaign leaders or the one put up by President Eisenhower?
Well, I would suggest that, if you know the President, that was probably a facetious remark. I would also suggest that insofar as his statement is concerned, I think it would be improper for the President of the United States to disclose the instances in which members of his official family had made recommendations as I have made them through the years to him, which he has accepted or rejected. I can only say that my experience is there for the people to consider. Senator Kennedy's experience has been different from mine. Mine has been in the executive branch. His has been in the legislative branch. I would say that the people now have the opportunity to evaluate his as against mine, and I think both he and I are going to abide by whatever the people did decide.
Mr. Kennedy? Senator Kennedy?
Well, I'll just say that the question of experience and the question also is what our judgment is of the future and what our goals are for the United States and what ability we have to implement those goals. Abraham Lincoln came to the presidency in 1860 after a rather little-known session in the House of Representatives, and after being defeated for the Senate in '58, and was a distinguished president. There's no certain road to the presidency. There are no guarantees that if you take one road or another, that you will be a successful president. I have been in Congress for 14 years. I have voted in the last 8 years, and the Vice President was presiding over the Senate and meeting his other responsibilities. I have had decisions over 800 times on matters which affect not only the domestic security of the United States, but as a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The question really is, which candidate and which party can meet the problems that the United States is going to face in the 60s?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This hour has gone by all too quickly. Thank you very much for permitting us to present the next President of the United States on this unique program. I've been asked by the candidates to thank the American networks and affiliate stations for providing time and facilities for this joint appearance. Other debates in this series will be announced later and will be on different subjects. This is Howard K. Smith. Good night from Chicago.
Good evening once again. I am Jack Parr from The Jack Parr Show. What a landmark debate we have just witnessed between Senator John F. Kennedy and Vice President Richard Nixon. We can clearly understand what the candidates stand for here. Tune in after these commercials for more coverage on the presidential debate. I'm Jack Parr, and good night, America.